So Tanya, you are the creator of the new series Vida. Tell us a little bit about the show and where the idea for it came from.
I sort of got pitched the story by Starz. Not sort of, they really did. I was going in for a meeting where I thought, I had just gotten off of How to Get Away with Murder, and I thought I was going in to interview for one of their shows, like one of those initial generals, the executive we would not be here if it wasn't for her, Marta Fernandez, and I think it has a lot to do with her last name, her name, being Hispanic is important in this story. And then she talked about this, she was like, have you ever heard of chipsters? And I was like, Chicano hipsters, yes, of course. And then she goes, have you heard of gentification? And I mean, I put the term together and it made sense right there. And then we had this amazing conversation about it. And I said, I would like to, she said, we have a show called Por Vida that we're trying to develop. I don't know if you'd be interested in it. And I was like, yeah, I would like to interview for that show. Yeah. They're like, no, to be the showrunner. And I was like, wait, what? I'd been here 3 years in Hollywood. I was writing plays before then in Chicago, starving, but not knowing that I was starving because like everyone around me was starving and like, buying each other like one beer we could afford, like all that is now such a like, it's only been 5 years, but it just seems like such a long time ago. But yeah, so like she was like, no, we want you to be the showrunner. I was like to my agent, do these people know that I just got here 3 years ago? I'm barely still learning how to use Final Draft, and I still don't know how to use Final Draft that well. Anyway, so that's sort of how it started. I wrote you write the document. They also they handed me this article from the LA Times about gentrification, nothing to do with Sister, nothing to do with what Vida is now. And then this other sort of like a document, this format where that they had hired a local writer to do about the world, like what the world could look like, because when they were not. And so now we're here. How development goes.
Right, yeah. Explain a little bit gentrification and the other hipsters, Chicana hipsters.
Yeah.
For those of us who might not understand what that exactly means and how it relates to the show, can you talk about how that relates to the show a bit?
Yeah. Chicano hipsters are chipsters, right? It's a new, not that new, but it's like a relatively new term in the mainstream. And it just denotes that it's the like hipsters, but they are, inside hipsters. So in this neighborhood, sometimes they're like insiders, but hipsters with the same presentation, but with a cultural, twist. It's like usually more Latinx, and gentrification. Gente is the Spanish word for people or the people. So when you say gentrification, it's a term that means gentrification of a Latinx space by upwardly mobile Latinx. And I use the term Latinx with an X at the end to be gender inclusive. So all these terms, right? All these terms throwing out there. But yeah, so we have a non-binary actor on the show. So Latinx is something we really, really stand by,
Right.
using.
Right. And I mean, I bring that up because, what the show does is it presents this view of Latinx culture that we haven't seen on television really before. And I mean, can you talk a bit about, using, how did you, using your own experiences, I guess, and experiences that maybe you had heard about from other people in the Latinx community, and in order to, create the show and give it that kind of authentication?
Well, it's like any like storyteller or creator is waiting to tell their story, right? Like from their point of view, how they see it. So that's sort of what I did. They gave me a shot, like in Hamilton. I'm not gonna throw away my shot. I didn't throw away my shot. I just put it sort of through my prism, right? Through my filter, which is queer and Latinx and female. So like and then I just held on to family, to those two sisters, and then the world sort of filled out around it. So I didn't worry about making it authentic. I feel like that's for Mexican food restaurants to worry about. Like authentic Mexican food. I just put it through my prism, and then, well, it's authentic also because all my writers are Latinx, in my writer's room, and there's one male and the rest are female. Most of them are queer, so sort of like that was gonna always be it. We were gonna be staying true to life.
Right. I mean, I guess, by authentic, that is what it means, staying true to life and staying true to your experiences.
Right.
Talk a bit about, you focus on these two sisters, Lynn and Emma. Tell us a little bit about those characters and also about the actresses who play them, Mishel Prada and Melissa Barrera.
I started this like a play because I had the luxury to have, and pilot, when you're developing, you have like a lot of time, not now that we're like in the midst of it. But so what I do is I take my iPhone, and because I'm a former actress, and I just do scenes by myself, and I do the two voices. And Emma's voice was really rigid. Like, when I was doing it, it was really rigid. And, her language, her syntax started coming out a certain way. And then Lynn started coming out and then I just started writing. There was no, because I just got here. So outlines were not how I worked first, I sort of had to be like, what is my anchor, So then I had these essences. So then when we, finished the pilot and we were looking for these essences, you never get the person that's on your, like, right here, but you might get how they sound. Like you're never going to get the person that, coming through that looks exactly how you want them to look. But cadence and tone, when you hear Emma or when you hear Mishel Prada, her voice was that deep, like, centered, in control voice. I'm like, that's Emma. That's Emma, And then Melissa is just, was a great Lynn too. I had to hear them. That's when I knew, because actors come in and they look how they look. Like, Michelle has curly hair for real, and Melissa had really straight, short hair. So like, the look is not so much; it's how they sound, and they like. You sort of look up and be like, there you are. There's Emma. So that's sort of how I love those girls. They became sisters like this. Because we found Michelle like a week before we started to shoot, and because everything was really fast, everything moved really, really fast. And they they're like your friends now. It's also because Melissa just moved from Mexico, so like she just knows us. She doesn't have all the friends and stuff. Anyway, they become a family. For real. Hope it doesn't change second season if we get a second season. Because everyone's so sweet and nice right now.
Right. The other character I wanted to talk to you about was I'm going to mispronounce his name, but it's Sarah and
Swategi.
Thank you. Can't read my own handwriting sometimes. Anyway, because this character comes in and sort of throws a bit of a wrench into their perceptions of their mother and into their own lives. Can you talk a bit about that character and the dynamic between the three of them?
Yes, and that's developing, because we have 6 episodes. It's only 3 hours of television. I think that's going to develop. But, they come home and they realize their mother was married to Eddie, who is a woman, a cis female. So the mother that they thought they knew was not queer at all. And for her mother to have this other life, have started this other family, it's like the biggest offense, especially to Emma, because of her own queerness, So it's fertile ground for a family drama, especially because now they're forced together by, this inheritance to be a family in a way, reluctantly. And but also I love the performer that is playing Eddie. They are non-binary, and they're Sarah and Swategi, and I saw them in a play in January of 2017 maybe, and I rushed them in the lobby, and I was like, hi, you're Eddie. I don't have a green light. I haven't even finished the script, but you're Eddie. And they were like, because I like rushed them, because they were just it, so I just like held on to them until and then they were Eddie,
And it is very fertile ground for drama. I mean, because it really takes an examination of issues of queerness and cultural perceptions of it, and very specifically to this community and to this area of town. I mean, can you talk a bit about that?
The area of town, because we've trapped our traditions in this area of town, right? So there is machismo, there is a patriarchal like sort of view to things, and there is some homophobia, which you will see played out surprisingly, hopefully, because for so long this bar that Vidalia, the mother, Vida, and her wife Eddie have sort of fomented this new clientele, and so it's like safe for queer women to come and hang out. Now everybody else sort of left for the most part, so they're not making a lot of money, but at least it's a haven for lesbians in the neighborhood. So you don't notice it for about 5 episodes until they have to sort of go out, and then you realize, no, wait, it's still a traditional area. And hopefully that's surprising. I mean, surprising, not that it's a traditional area, but like in the storytelling.
Right. I mean, it's something that's also very relatable as well. I mean, one of the great qualities of this show is that it's so specific about a culture and an ethnicity and a community that it is universal in a way, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that was the aim. Absolutely. So if we could just get really specific, but so specific, it's not even just about Mexican America. It's about one neighborhood in one city in the United States, and you get really specific. I feel like you can be universal that way, because and I don't have the answers. Like I said, I just got here, but executives kept asking me, what's the answer? Like, when are we going to reach the Latinx community? Well, they don't say Latinx, but or Hispanic community, they say. And I'm like, I don't know, but to try to do an umbrella show there's 27 countries that make up the Latin diaspora. You're never going to get, like, you need to let us be specific, because it's different than other ethnicities. I think Asians understand this, because there are 16 countries that make up their diaspora, so it is very I feel like by being detailed, you can, like you just said, you can be universal, because really it's about a family,
and everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the fact that you've been a playwright for a long time, and I wonder if you could talk a bit about transitioning into writing for television. And was it a big leap for you? What did you learn as a playwright that helped you when you started writing for television?
It was a big leap, and one that I was not ready for. I got discovered, or somebody handed an UTA agent. This is what I thought it was. An UTA agent is because somebody sent me an email, and they were like, I would like to meet with you for lunch. And in the theater, you never have lunch, you have coffee, So I was like, lunch? Yes. I was doing a play in New York, and he had gotten a hold of this play, Mala Hierba, that he'd read. And finally somebody corrected me. They were like, it's UTA, not UTA. And I was like, oh my God. I didn't know anything, because in Chicago, we don't have UTA. We don't have Wami. We don't have Sa or whatever. We don't have all those, So I was like, I went, and he was like, you could write for television. And I was like, do I have to go back to school? Because right now, my playwriting career is going well. No, you just take meetings. Like, what do you mean? You just do this and talk about yourself. That's how you get a TV writing job? Okay, I can do that. So I accidentally got a TV writing job, because I say accidentally because I didn't know how to use Final Draft. I didn't know that was a showrunner's meeting. I didn't know who Mark Cherry was. All the things, like Mark Cherry was like, that's who I at the meeting. And then the next thing you knew, I was in a writer's room, the first day of the writer's room, and there I was, So it was a lot of growing pains, because the first day of my writer's room experience, one of the coworkers turns to me and says, you do know you're the diversity hire, right? And I was like, what's that? Nothing. And they were like, oh, honey, he goes. And I'm like, so I call the UTA agent, and I'm like, what does that mean? Am I actually a writer? Am I an assistant? Like, what am I doing? No, you just don't cost the show anything. So that stayed with me the whole year. So in the room, I was like, can I speak out? Can I speak up? So it was hard. And then also I wrote like 36-page scenes in the theater that never stopped in it. And you TV people want like page-long scenes. And I was like, how much? This is torture, I got it now. I mean, my scenes are still long. The directors would say, in Vida, they would be like, this is like a one-act play, this 7-page scene. But I'm like, do this one-act play. So in that regard, it was because I was not also mentally prepared, and also the culture of pitching. TV writing is not about writing. It turns out it's pitching, and who's like the most witty. And I'm not witty, so I I can't like, you know, so that I struggled. But then I got on a show called Looking, and it was more like playwriting, and it was lovely, and it was led by a filmmaker who'd never had a TV show. So it was really great. And then, you know, I didn't think that anything that I was doing in playwriting or that I had done, which included being the artistic director of a theater company that I founded for 10 years. I didn't know that anything was helping me except, well, I could write, you know, characters. But it turns out that that's huge because I had developed my voice for 15 years. And then now that I'm leading a company of 100 and whatever people, being that, it's strangely enough, being the artistic director of a struggling non-for-profit and like touring the Midwest in a van with 6 Latinas, it turns out it's a lot like showrunning, except with millions, not 150K a year, which was what we made, you know, our budget, our operating budget in my theater company. So yes, now I understand how me having developed my voice and playwriting, you know, with my theater making and leading these 10 Latinas, now it makes sense. You know, also I became like unapologetic about my aesthetic. It's very female, very Latina. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And Starz never, ever like noted me on that. When I turned in the first thing and there was one scene with one guy, they never said anything. You know what I mean? So that's been amazing to be like totally sort of nurtured and encouraged.
Well, I think you made the leap well. Tanya, thank you so much, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome.